Hello, today we have Ruth McLees joining us. Ruth is an experimental landscape painter and a business analyst. And we will be talking with her today so that we can get more insight into both, because we want to know how that links up to sales operations. This is the Sales Ops Effect, where we strengthen our skills as strategic leaders to grow businesses with integrity. Hello, Ruth.
Hi, Charlene. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, are there different types of business analysts? Analysts? How do you pronounce that?
Analysts, analytics, both of those things, I think you could say.
Okay, yeah, that. Are there different types? Because I believe there are different types, but I'm not quite sure.
There are a whole breadth, I guess, of types of BAs. A lot of BAs, though, like me, I'm a consultant business analyst, so we are a bit of a one-stop shop. So covering a whole range of skills. Now, I would say there's probably sort of almost like a split camp between the techie sort of developer IT side of business analysis, and then there's the sort of business side of business analysis, and then there's all the mixtures in between, really. So you would have this sort of very technical BA or a business analyst who is more of a data analyst. And then you have the side, which is where I sit a bit more on the business side, where I am more about working with the business to capture requirements or understand what they're doing in a more wordy way, if you see what I mean, and then help to bridge the gap then between business and wordy stuff and process maps, and then the technical IT side. There's this space in between, because in general, business analysts are trying to translate something from a business and make it into something sensible that can be developed in the IT side. So I guess it's like a sliding scale.
That's such a great way to explain it. It is translation, isn't it? And I think a lot of times when we think about analyzing anything, we're thinking specifically about the numbers. We're not thinking about the language. Right. So, there's the formulaic business analysts. Let's go into your side a little bit more. Can you give us an example of the kind of work that you do just generally?
Yeah, so I, in general, am capturing, organizing, prioritizing information more than I do with numbers and data, I suppose. So I generally work with a business on understanding what they are doing and speaking to the business, and then organizing all of the output of that into some way that doesn't make your head spin and actually can be used to formulate to solve a problem, formulate a business solution.
It sounds like clarifying what lots of people who are shouting in the room are saying.
Yeah.
And then feeding it back to them.
Yeah, a bit like that. Basically capturing everything and finding commonalities, finding differences, trying to get people to agree, trying to pull out sort the wheat from the chaff type thing.
So it's because I can see the link between that and sales ops right now. For anybody listening, if you can see the link, then let us know in the comments. But there's a link there. There's a link with project management as well, because that's a part of what project managers have to do in a lot of cases. How did you get into being a BA specifically?
So this is a bit of a sort of long and merry tale. It does link into the world of project management as well, though. So I did a fine art degree and I became a full-time artist, which was always the sort of passion that I had. I don't think I'd ever known about business analysis. I don't think I even was aware of it existing much then, other than a thing that just I heard mentioned a few times and didn't know anything about. So I was an artist for quite a long time, and whilst I was an artist, as a way of it's hard, it's not easy to make an income as an artist. I did a vocational training course and I became an arts-based trainer. So I was going into businesses to run team building workshops, and I worked with some like really big sort of price comparison companies, that sort of thing. And I was working with their teams on team building, skills building, in collaboration, that sort of team. The sort of team building things that you do. But I was using art as one of the triggers for the team building and the learning. So whilst I was there, I got quite interested in the whole business side of things as opposed to the art world. And I could see that I actually quite preferred working with businesses as opposed to the art world, which I find it's messy in the art world. A lot of things aren't managed well. A lot of things are hit and miss or done by luck. So I quite liked this world that I was in. So as an offshoot from being an arts-based trainer, I started to run my own arts projects where I would make the art, but I would also manage the project for a client.
Right.
So like public art type projects. And doing that, I realised the importance of having good project management to make sure you could deliver something on time. And so I did my Prince 2 practitioner, which is a project management exam.
Yeah.
And I became a qualified project manager off the back of that. So there's a big link there between the way everything in my brain works and having some tight controls around the delivery of like a defined solution.
Yeah. I think it's really, really interesting, again, that you didn't know what business analysts did, or you didn't know they existed, but you ended up finding your way there anyway. That natural navigation as a result of you following what your skill set was, I think is really important, because that's how I found my way into sales ops. I was doing sales ops for years before I knew it was called sales ops, So what do you think were your top skills that made you a good BA, even though you weren't looking for it?
Yeah. My top skills, the reason I moved sideways into being a business analyst, the fact that I am a detail person. I love detail things. I love to have a spreadsheet with all of the information in it down to the minutest possible detail, and then be able to sort through it, prioritize things, give a hierarchy. I like little tiny things. And with my art, I like little tiny things. I like to draw something that's very fine and detailed, and I like to use a tiny little craft knife to cut little stencils. And I quite enjoy that detail. And as a PM, you'll know, project managers, you need the big picture. And although I can do the big picture, my brain likes to get stuck into the teeny weeny things in that timeline. So that's how I sort of moved sideways. And I got offered a sideways move, actually, one of my contracts, into being a business analyst. And it turned out that was something I really enjoyed a lot more, I think. And I also really enjoy the whole workshop side, sitting down with a group of stakeholders and making some good relationships, really, and pulling information out and shuffling it around and making something sensible and playing it back to stakeholders, which I know project managers do, but it is really quite sunk into the realm of being a business analyst to have that real close stakeholder working relationship. So those two pieces, I think, are why I really enjoy being a business analyst now, and why I moved sideways into it then.
And again, that's so great, because that whole sideways move that you've mentioned, there's people that are listening to this now that are considering going into sales ops or are already in it and are not sure if they actually, we get that imposter syndrome sometimes. They're not sure if they've actually got the skills. But this is one of the things that I like to highlight to people all the time, is that even though you might be doing something that doesn't feel like as if it's an upward trajectory, it doesn't mean you can't learn from where you are. And, the past things that you've done are really valuable. There's skills there, and there's things there that you didn't know you liked. You didn't know you liked being in workshops and helping to train people. And, I don't know to that level of detail if you knew that at the time, but you learned. Whereas for some people, being in workshops is horrible. Yeah. Like the sales ops crew, we quite like training people. We quite like explaining things. And if you don't, then there's specific sides of sales ops, maybe more the data stuff that, somebody with your eye for detail would be much more in. But again, there's different places that suit different people, and it's about what works for you, rather than, I would say, without putting words in your mouth, pursuing the thing that just looks like as if it can make you the most money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know if you don't try it. That's the other thing. And also, what is the harm in trying if you've got that opportunity to have? I was petrified to try, to be honest, because I can remember when I first got the role, training in the gym the morning before I was running big workshops, thinking, oh my goodness, am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And writing like loads of stuff down. But then it's one of those things I got into, and I just flew with it and get carried away when I was in the moment speaking to people, and really enjoy questioning and really enjoy getting answers and really enjoy building these relationships. And if you don't take the chance, you never know if it's something you can fly at, because you might.
Completely. Were you always somebody that took the chance, or is that something you had to learn to do?
No, I've always been someone who thinks of doors having a little gap in them that I might want to go through and see what's on the other side. So definitely, that's the sort of person I am. Let's have a go and see what happens. And in general, I don't give up on something if I think it's the right thing, and I get a little glimpse of I might enjoy it. I give it a go 100%. So I think that's the key. Do something, try it 100%, and then you'll know if it's the way you want to go.
You know, if it fits, it's like an outfit. You try it on, don't you?
You
can't just look at it and go, I don't know. You sometimes things do look different when you try it on. I love that. Slight side, quest here. I know one of the projects that you were working on was around a CRM. Mm-hmm. Again, sales ops, so big fans of CRMs.
Yeah.
What was that like, and what was that about? What was the goal for that project?
So the goal of the project was to build a funding platform for a large public sector body, but base it on the Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So taking something out of the box, and then I was working with the business and with Microsoft partners to translate the business requirements for what they want to do into functional requirements that can be passed to the developers to tweak the out of the box tool into something that suits our needs.
Wow. So again, that seems really big when you're hearing it, because it's a lot of translation, but do you have a framework, like a standard high level 3-5 point framework for how you break that down? Like, where do you start when you're trying to understand what a business requirements are? You
sit with the business. The whole thing you start with, in my case, is sitting with the business and understanding as is, what are they doing now? We spent a long time capturing process maps, looking at, we had like, I don't know, 30 or something as is processes. But then when you start to look at them, you can see commonalities, or you start to spot the areas of waste, I guess, places that you could make something a bit more lean. And so it's basically, you start off with that as is, and from them, getting the business together to define, in their perfect world, how would a to-be process work? What do they have to do? What can we clean out of the old process to make the new one better? And then once you've agreed the to-be process, that then helps to form the basis of requirements. It was an agile project, which does make it easier, because then you've got this constant iterative loop of, making things better the whole time. You don't have to stop and start again. So it was then working with the business to use that sort of high level to pull together user stories and requirements that could form the basis then of the new solution.
That is so interesting. And the bit that I'm focusing on there is making it better.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that was specifically in the brief, but I know sometimes when we're asked to, in both of our worlds, we're going over to this system instead of using this system, the hope is just that it will be functional. And if it's better, then, okay, that's great. But a lot of people don't actually focus on better or efficiency. So is that something that was specifically asked for by the company, or is that something you actively try to do, make things better?
Well, I think it's both, because they realised that a lot of what they were doing was not a workable long-term solution. So things that were being managed by spreadsheets or requiring multiple loops of review and approval, that sort of thing. So they knew that was like not a value-add process, and it could be sort of tidied up a lot. And the other bit was that we were bringing together so many different processes of people, types of funding that were all processed for slightly different things in slightly different ways, but essentially were the same. So just by means of trying to join them together, you end up getting rid of all the waste, because they will not work if you have, sign-offs in different places in a different process map, if you see what I mean. So it's about then getting the business to say, okay, well, we don't really mind if these two steps switch around. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's still going to work. So it was that sort of getting some consensus, which isn't always easy with business, but that it definitely was a focus, because in addition, the new system just out of the box just couldn't accommodate all those intricacies. You'd be trying to build it for the next 6 years, so you don't want to go there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And specifically why they brought you on, what do you think that was one of the main reasons? Because you said that there were some things that were effectively just not scalable because this person had to approve this. Why? What was the business case? It could, if people are doing those processes, surely they would have the insight to say, I'm being very, hypothetical here, to say, oh, this is what's going on. Why do you think the business itself needed help?
I think they were aware of all these areas of waste, and they were aware that it was taking up a lot of time and resource, but due to capacity and the fact that they'd just done things that way the whole time and didn't have the time to relearn, I suppose, or do it in a different way. That was, how it is. You've done something the same way for 6 years. People want to keep doing it that way because they know that way.
Yeah.
So it was a big thing bringing in a new system for a start. But in the process of bringing the new system in and walking stakeholders through what the capabilities of the new system are, I think they could see, oh, actually, this is some way, this will make our lives better if we say yes, or if we cut this piece of, these loops out of our process. And I think that was like an education as well, that once they could see that it could be made better, they were open to that idea. But until that point, they couldn't see an easy way that they could switch to a new process.
That is an excellent point. And again, there where you're talking to stakeholders and helping to open their eyes, where does that skill set come from?
Oh goodness, I like people. I like talking to people. That's one of my good skills, I think, is stakeholder management and getting on with people and listening, and just I think that's helped me succeed as a BA, to be honest, is knowing how to put things in a way that gets people to listen and doesn't put people's backs up. And that's really important, is being able to phrase things in a way that people want to hear. And that isn't about just going in like, chucking your toys out of the pram and saying, right, you're going to do it my way. That is about building the relationships first and then working with them to understand changes or understand their problems, understanding, there's all sorts of constraints in a business. If you just go in like plowing forwards, you won't understand the pressures that they're under. There's all sorts of stuff in BAU. Like for me, my project is the most important thing. But if you're in a business in BAU, my project is so far down their list. So I need to understand them and their likes, their dislikes, their worries, all that stuff, and actually just like them as people, get on with those people. And then from that, you can then build the change and build the understanding and the buy-in, I think.
That sounds like a lot of real empathy.
I like people. It's fine. I mean, I've worked on more technical projects than this.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoy this much more.
Oh, that's good. And how does that how do you think that links back to your art then? Because again, you were saying it before, your detail orientated mindset is in both sides, but how does the people element link through to your art?
Oh, the people side of things. I mean, I've done a lot of engagement projects, not so much now, but I had done a lot of community projects, working with community groups or working with museums, using art as a form of engagement and to address various like social issues, I guess. So that's always been part of it. And I have done a lot. I mean, with the people side of things, before I was doing landscapes, I did a lot of portraiture. So that was me working with collections of people, sometimes with community, sometimes with individuals on portrait projects, which I was really interested in. I had a project for a while where I painted people on textiles that they had selected. So I was doing portraits on maybe like scraps of wedding dresses or fabric that they like vintage fabric that it was like an heirloom, and that sort of tied in with their personality or their history. So you had a person, but you also had like a material that imbued their history, their memories, their connections.
Wow.
That was something I did a lot of in the past.
Wow. And I can just, listeners, people who are watching, this is what I really want to get across. Ruth here is a whole person. You don't have to focus your whole career on one aspect, one topic, because the skill sets that she has are so incredibly useful for at least two things that we're aware of. And they can transfer over. And I think that's just amazing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing to remember. Skills are really transferable. And the fact that I got a job as a project manager and a business analyst after being an artist, it just shows how transferable skills are. So my CV didn't have these roles or these job roles on them, but it had all this other stuff that I'd done, community engagement and arts-based training and team building and portraiture and I don't know, all of them. I've got my CV is a whole hodgepodge of all sorts of things. But I got to that point, and I guess whoever was reading it could see it's not necessarily about the qualifications you've got or the defined experience you've got in one particular job. It's actually the whole picture of everything that's come before.
Definitely. So what is next for you art-wise? You said you did portraits before and you were doing tiny landscape art now. Is that where you're going to be taking things forward, or do you have other things in mind to experiment with?
Well, I'm doing tiny landscape art now just because I've got a 2-year-old and I've got a studio and I can't get there. So my paintings have to fit in my home, and they can't be too messy or smelly. I used to paint a lot with resin, used a lot of resin and industrial materials. They can't have that. So it's all scaled down quite a lot. But I have this level of experimentation, and I guess this ties back a bit into the business analysis side. This whole exploration of options and this whole agile thinking. As an artist, I like to test and learn. Okay, so I've got these materials like some industrial resin and some weird pigment and I don't know what else, whatever I can dig out. And what happens if I mix them together, and what can I create? So, and if I fail, how do I make it better the next time? So again, it's this agile iteration.
Yeah.
This looks rubbish, or this hasn't quite worked, but I've got a new bit here. What can I do with it next? And that's what I'm doing in my tiny landscapes. I've got some nice powder pigments and some interesting mediums, which I'm using to paint with, which produces something that is not traditional, I suppose. So this is my little ongoing experiments on the side of my desk of what can I make in the world of landscapes that is making me happy and I'm learning something new from.
That sounds amazing. And I've seen some already, and I would encourage everybody to go and take a look because I'm looking forward to seeing more. Where can people find you to come and see your art?
At the moment, again, to do with having a toddler, I haven't got a lot of stuff in any physical space, apart from like private collections, which are not obviously open to the public. But I'm on a lot at the moment, Facebook and Instagram at Ruth McLees Art. And I am in the process of setting up an online gallery and hopefully a little store. I can ping you the details of that if you want to pop it somewhere, Charlene.
Thank you very much. I'll be sharing with the audience. That is for certain. So thank you so much, Ruth. Really appreciated your time today, talking through everything. And just how things flower into being something that works for you, I think is amazing. So thank you so much for sharing with everyone today.
Oh, it's been lovely to talk to you, Charlene. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you.